May I please invite my colleague Rahul Binoy. Rahul Binoy, can you please introduce the next panel topic, and you can please introduce the eminent speakers for this panel discussion. Rahul.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, sir. Hi, good afternoon, all my GMN speakers and my fellow audience. My name is Rahul Binoy, and I'm the event head representing ASMA. Before starting the panel discussion, I'd like to introduce our speakers we have in here today with us. The first speaker I'd like to introduce is a successful commercial leader with over 19 years of experience in the consumer goods, retail, and telecom space. He has held varied roles in business management, sales and distribution, business strategy, brand management, trade marketing, GTM transformation, and execution excellence. Please welcome the CEO of Boxing University, Mr. Vishal Kurma. Our next speaker is a teacher at heart who sees education as a mission of life with vast experience of 42 years. Her journey from a maths teacher to a leading educationist is truly inspirational. She has several accolades to her credit in the form of awards at the state and central government levels, such as the State Awards for Teachers, International Achievers Award, Women Entrepreneur. I'd like to welcome Dr. Madhu Chitkara. She is the Pro Chancellor
Thank
of
you.
Chitkara University.
Welcome, Madhuban.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is an academician, researcher, and professional trainer in entrepreneurship. She has over 3 decades of experience working with leading organizations such as chairman, member, and consultant. She has experience as Dean Management PG, Dean Academics, and Director of 2 business schools at MIT Pune. She is the recipient of several awards and accolades, such as the National Award as Best Trainer Motivator by ETI, the APJ Kalam Leadership Award by Fuel, to name a few. Please welcome the Vice Chancellor of DY Patil University, Dr. Seali Gankar. Welcome,
Welcome,
ma'am.
Dr. Siali.
Our next speaker has more than 39 years of experience in the field of education. He has been an entrepreneur for 3 years and worked in the industry for over 16 years as senior manager personnel. He is the member of numerous bodies related to higher education and is on the board of management and advisory boards of many institutions and universities. Please welcome Professor Abhay Kumar. He is the Vice Chancellor of Pratap University. So, welcome.
Welcome, Abhay, sir.
Our next speaker is an entrepreneur, educator, and a keen proponent of globalization of Indian business education. He has a PhD in management studies from Aligarh Muslim University, a PGDM in general management from Indian Institute of Social Welfare and Business Management, and a professional degree in hospitality studies from National Council of Hotel Management. He has held leadership positions at top institutions in the country, including SPJIMR, Mumbai, MICA, Ahmedabad, and IMT Ghaziabad. Please welcome Dr. Atish Chattopadhyay. He is the director of Jagdish Seth School of Management.
Welcome, Atish.
Followed by that, the moderator of this August panel. He has nearly 5 years of experience in business development and marketing in diverse industries. He is the founder of Vestos India and has worked in marketing and business development roles in prestigious organizations such as Practo. He's a very ambitious learner and with a desire to always look for improvements. He's currently heading the Key Accounts Division in College Dunia. Please welcome Mr. Rajat Goyal.
Welcome, Rajit.
Over to you, Rajat, sir. You can take over the panel now.
Yeah, thank you, Rahul, very much. So I think it's a great panel that we have today in front of us, and I would like to welcome all of you to College India presents ASMA India's Top 30 EdTech Summit. And the topic that we are going to discuss today is technological advancements in the higher education ecosystem. And I think it's a topic which has been talked about a lot recently, obviously after the COVID. And it's the time of change and technological acceleration in the education sector. Tech platforms are playing a significant role in transforming education across the country. And there is a need of adapting the new age technologies, and this was never as high as we are seeing it today. And all stakeholders are putting tremendous efforts to bring in the much required change. And I think everyone here will agree to the fact that the future is digital, right? So I'm sure that this session is going to be full of knowledge transfer. And without any further ado, I think I'll start off with the this insightful session. We'll be starting off with the opening remarks by all of the panelists, esteemed panelists here, and then we will be taking up some questions from the audience. And this is how the event's gonna pan out. So I'll just quickly invite Vishal sir to start off with his opening remarks on the topic, which is again technological advancements in the higher education ecosystem. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Rajat, and thank you to all the organizers, including College Dunia and ASMA, for giving an opportunity to be among the august panelists there as part of the summit. It's an outstanding list of speakers here, and I'm looking forward to a great learning experience and while I contribute as well as part of this. Coming to the topic particularly, education tech definitely is something which is making waves right now when it comes to the various legs of the education industry today across the higher education spectrum. Now, today, if you talk about, we have a lot and lots of processes and systems which are being digitalized as we speak. Now, it is no longer today because of COVID that we are in the same kind of, so I mean, 5 years back, I mean, all of you would remember that we used to talk about what is digitalization, And today, what we are talking about is how do we get this digitalization in place for our institution, So from what we have moved to now how. So which means that we have clearly accepted that digitalization is the new way the entire organization or the industry is going to work towards. So that's definitely one thing which everybody acknowledges today, thankfully. And hence it is not something that it can be, pushed under the carpet, that anything and everything which is today going along the student community, we are looking at, in a way to how we are able to get this digital transformation going in every leg and phase of the student journey when they come as a lead to you and when they graduate from your institution. The entire life cycle, I think the spectrum which is there is a definite interface of digital transformation, which is there today. Coming back on the various other things which are looking today, I think most of the organizations, most of the institutions today are definitely looking towards getting from paper-based systems and processes, the SOPs, to something which are completely paperless, okay? And that's what essentially digital transformation is, to my mind, in true sense. Not only in terms of the processes, but also in terms of the way the delivery is being given to the students during the course of their journey in the institutions. So there is a lot which is happening in this space, and I'm very, very happy the kind of innovation which is coming from the various partners which we have, which we will be facilitating also during the course of the day as part of the summit. And so all of those, I think, innovations are definitely bringing a lot of simplification in the way we were doing the entire activity of onboarding the students and delivering the learning to the students. And not only towards that, I think some of the key products also have come, which are basically making the entire experience of education delivery much more simpler to the student community across the spectrum, across the geographies, across the communities, and so on. So that's all from my side, Rajat.
Thanks, Arad. I think, and you have set the perfect tone for the event, that we have to move from what to how, right? And going paperless seems very basic, but it is yet tough to attain. Thanks for the insight, sir. I'll quickly move on to Dr. Madhu Chitkara. Good to see you again, ma'am. Back to back today.
Thank you.
So
you're doing a great job, and I'm always happy when you are there. And Dr. Abhay, namaskar, sir. And I think first time we are meeting Dr. Satyavi. So to start the, I think stage set, well said by Mr. Vishal, that how the technology is, and now we have all seen after this pandemic, now it is not after, we are moving towards that only and coming to a normal, but I think new normal will be very, very different from the what we were doing. So reason being that we all were very much, we started with the technology use. So that is why during pandemic and during the lockdown, I think we all were a little bit comfortable for delivering the products to the clients, that is the students. So I think if you see the last couple of years, we have experienced a lot of innovative trends happening in tech space. And I think which has transformed our educational ecosystem in a big way. And affordable world-class education is now accessible to everyone, irrespective of their location, caste, or creed. So I think this has been made possible because of mobile first learning framework, where everyone around has a smartphone. Everyone has a smartphone and hooked to high-speed internet. So I think technology enabled immersive learning it has replaced the orthodox classroom situation and classroom teaching styles. So extended reality, which is the superset of AR, VR, is the latest technology tools entering into our classrooms. I think all these technology backbones has been duly complemented by AI-based adaptive learning, where personalized learning is far more possible as compared to the earlier times. So we never thought of that we will be able to do these type of learning models, can be using learning models for the classroom teaching. And now the assessment rubrics. Now, if you see about the assessment also. So assessment rubrics in our educational system has got a drastic realignment in terms of gamification, in terms of continuous evaluation. Now it is continuous comprehensive evaluation. We were talking about it, but we were not doing it. Now, but with the use of technology, we are able to do that, which was a part of 86 policy also, that it has to be continuous comprehensive evaluation. It was written, we were using it, we were just saying it, but not doing it. But now with the latest technologies, we are able to do that evaluation process is also like that. And I think all these technology transformations have converted our faculty members from teachers to facilitators. And now with the Google as the online guru, and we always say it's a great father for all of us, that we are changing, even the teachers have changed. And because they were changing themselves, that is during the lockdown, they were very comfortable and they were able to deliver whatever was wanted by them. So not to forget the edtech platforms like Coursera, edX, Swayam, which has ensured that quality content from top global universities is available at the click of a mouse of button. So immediately you can click it and you can go to the best of the bestest professors in the world while using the technology. So I think there are different platforms where we are using now. For example, we are using Code Quotient, we are using Coding Ninjas, we are using the Google Classrooms, we are using Callpool, so Microsoft Team we use. So I think using this technology, we were very comfortable. And now the latest national education policy also states that we all, if we want to stay back in this industry, we have to be very technologically strong. So I think that is my take on for the day.
Thanks, ma'am. And I think it's really great that you touch upon all the pointers like affordability, accessibility, providing the experience to the students. Thanks for the insights, ma'am. I'll quickly move to Professor Dr. Abhay Kumar for his opening remarks.
Thank you, Rajat. I must extend my sincere thanks to Asma, Dr. Madhu, ma'am, my sincere regards to you, Mr. Vishal, Dr. Sayali, and all other distinguished panelists with us today. Well, getting an opportunity to talk upon the technological, advancements, especially in terms of the higher education sector. I would like to just say that since ages, technology has been changing, but it has never changed the lives as it has done in the past few months and past year or so. We have just had to jump on the bandwagon as Dr. Madhu has rightly pointed out during the COVID-19 crisis, but somehow we graduated. And the various technological companies have helped the higher educational institutions to come up and do justice to academics. So what I have seen is that, as mentioned, whether it was Google platform or whether it was Colpol or any other edtech service we have harnessed, I think it has given the results. Well, when we talk about, say, the changes in technology, I think, as we say, AI has come up, various technological advancements like AR, VR, IoT, whatnot. It has led to Industry 4. And these technologies have again transformed education into the arena of Education 4. Well, I remember Selden having said, who has given the, subject of Education 4 as a result of Industry 4. He said that for humanity, technology is going to be the thing which is going to help us all grow and prosper. Well, some people I have met have been talking about artificial intelligence as being not to that effect, rather dehumanizing. In a particular webinar, I felt someone saying that it was dehumanizing. Well, the reply that we could find was that if we wear a cap when we need it, when we don't need it, we can take it down. So the word intelligence has been somehow misconstrued with human intelligence. So we must understand that technology is here to help us. We are not here to be, buttressed by technology in our own sense. Educational institutions, especially higher educational institutions, have to hire technology. We have seen two facets. One is education having catered to the people who are actually having the, say, required facilities to the best in the country. Some educational institutions catering only to the better class of people. Now, what about the masses? The masses, we have seen the digital divide that had taken place during COVID-19. We have a lot of learning we have gone through. So in order to bridge that divide and reach up to the masses, technology is imperative. We cannot do without it. And every higher educational institution has transformed the way of the methodology of teaching and pedagogy, the delivery of the subject, and has used technology in the past few months and few years. It is going to not only end there. We are all going to use technology in our daily lives. The students have to be told as to what exactly they need in their personal lives and how to use the technology. Let me be very candid in saying that we have to first learn to use the mobile and then use the mobile how to learn. They are two different things. A mobile is not simply a handset in which a WhatsApp can be used or a Facebook can be operated upon or any app can be downloaded and used. We have to have a proper learning of how to use the mobile to learn. That is my viewpoint. So technology is the only way out. So thank you so much. I don't think I should take much more of a time. We have more panelists with us. So thank you so much.
And very rightly, technology is changing the lives like never before. And it is an inevitable part of the life now. So I'll just quickly move on to Dr. Sayali Gankar. And ma'am, your opening remarks on the current topic. Ma'am, can you please unmute your mic?
Yeah, thank you so much. Very good afternoon to all of you. My co-panelist, Honorable Dr. Madhuji, Honorable Dr. Abhayji, Rajatji, and all others, Chandan and Rahul also. Thank you for giving an opportunity. I think this is an advancement for all of us, what we are right now experiencing, all of us. I can imagine that it was so difficult to meet each of us, but then this COVID situation has made so possible that now we know each other so well. And this is what learning is happening. Being a part of a panel member or technological innovations have definitely created a very positive impact on our education, no doubt about it. This advancement has created a wonderful life, especially in terms of learning outcomes when you look at it, and learning outcomes in terms of, I'm not talking about only for students, but the whole ecosystem is experiencing it from the last almost 1 year now. Right from the admission processes to the convocations, we are getting support from all these edutech supporting organizations. All major leaders from the world, they have played a very important role. We started with MOOCs, we started with Microsoft, we started with Google, we started with Zoom. Initially, what Dr. Madhuji and Abhayji has said, that faculties were not ready. We were talking about I still remember in 2019-20, we deployed digital boards in classrooms, and faculties were facing huge amount of problem to enjoy it, right? And it became more of stress rather than a comfort. But today, if you look at it, everyone is at ease now, right? Sharing is possible, chatting is possible, question answers are possible. We are storing our the notes, we are sharing the videos, cloud, AR, AI, VR, all are become a part of our life now. Initially we were dependent on the laptops, but today it became so easy that our the handsets and smartphones are helping us to really play an important role in terms of outcome and performances. And this is possible because of many of us, we took a lot of effort in the past, and of course, quickly, that resilience has been seen by all of us, including small scale industries or the small edutech companies. Very rightly said that in our campuses, all campuses, leading campuses, which are right now here, in case of us, we are good in medical education, engineering, and it's the largest group. So you will find that in D.Y. Patil University campuses, especially with our medical education, if you look at it, we have the simulators which are available today, right? And it's only available in this South Asian part of this world. There's only one center where the students are directly learning on the simulators and live simulators with the help of AI and VR. So a student can immediately wear the glasses and can see how the things are inside the body. I think that's the major innovation which this world has given to all of us, right? Initially we were apprehensive about that how this collaborative learning will happen, because we were of course the change is there and resistance comes in, right? It's the immediately a side of the coin, right? And then we realize that now if you look at it, students are doing industry projects, they are doing research, they are giving presentations, and even cultural programs are also done on these platforms, right? And this is because of the kind of contribution which has been done by the edutech companies. I'm so happy that because we are in collaboration, we are working with many of these companies, right? And we are doing extremely well. Students are happy and faculty are happy. And of course, the kind of the speed, the kind of result what we are getting from admission to the result declaration, even conduct of examination, the complete process is being mapped so effectively that students and faculties are enjoying. Even our industries are also very happy to get connected with us. So this is from my side, and I'm sure that I'll come back again once the panel moves with the new inputs. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. So very rightly said that the whole ecosystem is now experiencing the change and people are now adapting towards the technology. And thank you for citing some examples also which are being used at your university for imparting the education and knowledge to students. I'll move on to Dr. Atish Chattopadhyay. Sir, your opening remarks, please.
Thank you so much. So let me give you a little bit of a background, in the sense that, you know, the EdTech companies, the way we look at EdTech and the collaboration with established institutions is there for quite some time now. I remember at MICA, which is more than 6-7 years back, we had collaboration with TalentEdge to deliver programs. Eventually, we also collaborated with UpGrad, for example, both at MICA and at IMT Ghaziabad, where a very popular program I understand is still running, which is marketing and sales. Okay. So this is already there, but I would look at it from a little different angle in terms of what it means in when it comes to this tech-based or online learning, and particularly from the perspective of a teacher, I would say. Because one thing that I did during this lockdown, it's all about the continuity and all that we, I think we manage ourselves pretty well. Most of the education institutions with the calendar going on as per schedule, convocations happening, placements happening, all that. But I would point out at 4 things when it comes to online learning, which we are essentially talking about, whatever may be the platform, whatever may be the tech provider. The first important factor is that it's about empathy. Since when somebody is behind the screen, it requires a different approach from the perspective of the faculty who is facilitating the discussion. That is number 1. Because somebody who is behind the screen is in a very different context, and what are the challenges that person is facing, because it is not uniform. In a classroom, every participant is in a uniform setting. Whereas when a heterogeneous group is behind the screen, the setting for each individual is very different. And that's a very important understanding as a faculty we need to have. Number 2 is the whole issue of self-regulation. When it is, a participant is curating one's own course, pacing itself, that's how normally the courses pan out. The discipline which comes as an outcome of self-regulation becomes very important. Because normally on a campus-based situation, the schedule, calendar, and to a certain extent, certain discipline is inculcated where there are certain requirements. Whereas when you are not face-to-face, it is very important that both sides, a degree of self-regulation or discipline needs to be followed. The third issue is digital readiness, and that digital readiness is not just about technology, but how you adapt to the medium. To give you a simple example, because I'm saying that from my personal experience, in terms of when you are delivering a class in a classroom setting, the control that a faculty exercises during the course of the discussion is very different the way it happens in an online setting, because each participant is free to chat at any point in time. One can raise, multiple people can raise hands together. So contrary to the popular belief, what we found is if you want us to deliver effective online education, you need, or at least we deployed, more than one faculty in the class, which means there was a faculty who was actually responding. When we are talking about a live class, it's not recorded, we are talking about synchronous classroom classes. There was faculty who is actually responding to the chats and also alerting the facilitating faculty that this is what the class wants, whereas the facilitator is actually like the orchestra conductor. Okay, so instead of one, we actually deploy 2 faculty. Second challenge is, even if you have got online proctoring using platforms like Metal, etc., which we used, we have to develop protocols, just like you have got an examination guideline for a physical offline examination. We need a protocol for online examination, what will be you need a particular way in which the questions or the assessment tool has to be set. What will be the do's and don'ts? Again, there are issues as to because the group behind the screen is very heterogeneous. So how you attend to each one's requirement becomes a challenge. And that links back to the first point of empathy. And also the issue of self-regulation at both ends. So 3 important factors to my mind to make tech-based online learning reasonably successful. 1, empathy. 2, the issue of self-regulation. 3, the issue of digital readiness. Of course, we can have combinations, like even as our students are on campus, we can use technology for a different way in which the learning can take place. Okay, to supplement and complement as well. But these 3 factors, empathy, self-regulation, and digital readiness, is key to achieving the learning outcome. This EdTech is not a very new phenomenon. How we actually use this to the advantage of the learners and to make learning a co-creation is something which we need to understand and address.
Very rightly said, sir. And thank you for bringing the completely different perspective to the table, that how empathy, self-regulation, and digital readiness would be the important factor going forward. Thank you very much, sir, for that. I'll just quickly move on to the questions that I have for the esteemed panelists. And my first question is from Vishal, sir. So Vishal, sir, you have been associated with the corporate, or let's say the industry, from last 2 decades, right? And you have been a student yourself also in one of the most premium B schools yourself, right? And now that you are leading a university from the front, and Voxen as a brand has grown leaps and bounds under your reign. So I just want to understand from you that how technology can be leveraged in the higher education space to bridge the gap between the education and the industry. You have been a part of both the areas, right? So I just want you to understand. I just want you to just put some light on this, that how we can bridge the gap between education and industry. Sir, if you can unmute your mic. Yeah, thanks.
Sorry, apologies for that. Rajat, very pertinent question today, because I think when we look at as an institution, we have to be, I think, consumer out thinking is what is required. Okay, so when I talk about any of the steps we take or any of the initiatives we undertake at Voxen University today, we don't really think, inside out perspective is what we always look for. So when we are talking about the customer perspective, we are talking about essentially what today's discerning students are our customers and what they really need from us, right? If we are talking about that, essentially what you would see is there are 3 or 4 things which are going to stand out very, very clearly if you get into the shoes of a new age PG student or aspirant who's going to be Generation Z. Now, a Generation Z today works very differently than how the millennials used to be and how the generation, the baby boomers used to think, right? So we have to really step ourselves up and change the game towards actually understanding what the Generation Z is looking for in today's context. And that's where also the industry comes into the picture, because the industry also tomorrow is going to hire Generation Z, right? And if that Generation Z is not organization ready, industry ready, job ready, of course, they would not be interested in hiring that kind of talent, which is probably, not up to the mark, but who doesn't have the global exposure. So what today, these 3-4 things which are critical for the Generation Z as a customer. The first insight which I found out as I moved towards this side of the table and started thinking about how the higher education delivery should happen. The first thing I think very clearly is that the students today no longer want to get into the old rut of theory-based curriculums, at all. We have seen multiple examples, multiple stories have come across to me. During the interview sessions, I have interacted with the students myself, where they say that we don't want that kind of an old routine, and that's what is possibly pushing them off from that old curriculums which have been running in some of the other universities, which are not really up to the mark. So what today the students are looking at is, making sure that you get a exposure which is the industry exposure apart from the theory concept of it. So in terms of the curriculum design, what we are doing very, very consciously today is the 50% focus is definitely towards the theory part of it. You can't do away with Kotler's and other books which were already there during our times also. But at the same time, I think it is also equally critical that we give them the exposure which comes through group assignments, which comes through various live projects, which comes through various internships, which comes through the practical exposure which we give through the case studies and so on. So the pedagogy today is very well designed, which is a balance of a very fine balance between the theory as well as the practical part of it. Now, on top of that, in today's context, with the technology coming into the picture, what has also happened is the industry today is collaborating with us to make sure that how do we really, cut short circuit this entire timelines which are there to make the students ready, because many of the organizations, hire talent, then they put them through internships or a 6 month of a development program or a learning program to make them ready for getting into the job, right? So what we are doing is we are going back and speaking to the industry and telling them, boss, you were talking about 6 months to be further, built and invested in the talent which you're hiring from us. Tell me what I can do as a university. Can I basically bung in all the inputs what you are having as an industry into my curriculum itself? So what if I improvise my curriculum on a yearly basis with the inputs coming from the industry on a day-to-day basis, to make sure that they are no longer required to invest that kind of a time and money when they hire the talent from us, So that is one big sort of a booster which is required, I think, in today's context when it comes to the customers which they are looking at. Second one is, I think today we are having a lot of introduction of live projects and some of the modules which are very well integrated with the usage of technology. So for example, at Watson University, we recently came up with MBA Financial Services as a new program, which is a niche program. I'm very happy to share today that this also as an input came from our interaction with our customers and students, So what it came out is that today you have in India 4,500 management schools all across the country. Now, how many of those schools are having that kind of a setup or that kind of a learning exposure which they can give to the students, which could be called as top rated in the world, from a financial perspective. So when I say financial services, we are talking about, making the students ready in terms of the technical analysis, fundamental analysis of how the banking industry works, how the stock market works, how the mutual funds and the investment banking works, and so on, right? How the actuarial services work. All of those kind of inputs, if you're able to get it together and give them through a technology interface, is what the students were looking at. And guess what we did is we tied up with the #1 in the world, which is a Bloomberg. And we got the Bloomberg Finance Lab, which is today probably we are among the biggest in the country today, as only 11 institutions in the country who have the Bloomberg Finance terminals. So what is there? What we have done is we have picked up the Bloomberg technology, which is there. We made sure that the modules are in sync with the Bloomberg technology and how they are delivering the learning to the learners. We integrated those modules as part of our curriculum itself. So it's an integrated Bloomberg curriculum, what we designed for our MBA Financial Services to make sure that the learning becomes even more meaningful, and they get the right exposure, when they're out there in the market for getting that kind of a quality job in their particular domain.
It's really interesting to know that, sir. And I think some of our friends joined JP Morgan, and that is the first time they experience the Bloomberg when they join that. But if they're getting the exposure of Bloomberg while studying, that's a really good thing. It's a really beautiful thing to know. And yes, we have to, be industry. We have to build that industry experience also. So very rightly said, sir. I'll move on to Madhu, and ma'am, we are very much aware about the fact that under your leadership, Chitkara University has invested a lot of its, in the developing the IT infrastructure and towards digitalization of the entire university. So, what role do you think that technology such as AI and cloud computing and other upcoming technologies can play a role in imparting the knowledge to the students?
I think this is a need of the hour to understand these concepts and to discuss about it. And these are the platforms where we all can talk about that whatever we are using, so that the others, those who are not using or using the different platforms, can talk about it. So if you see the technology, and very appropriate topic of today's discussion is, you see that we have never talked about in Indian education system that gamification can also be part of it, and we can use this technology. So I think the future of educational technology revolves around the concept of offering appealing concepts to the learners of all ages, right? So if you adopt the gamification technology in the form of simulations of concepts, I think Saili ma'am also mentioned about it, that they are using the simulations and they have the infrastructure for that, because they are into the medical technology. So I think that is a part of the educational technology where, if we use it properly, and incentive-based learnings, level advancement badges like likes and mores will gain popularity. And I think that users will be engaged, and they can enhance, and they can use that knowledge to take a very different type of experience in the educational setup. Now, everybody's talking about big data, everybody's talking about artificial intelligence. So if every learner has a different learning rate, now every person, now if you see in our classroom situations, we have a mixed ability group, and everybody has a own pace of learning. So they understand the concepts with their own pace. So if we have a big data, and if we have artificial intelligence in place, so they can learn at their own pace. Their learning pace can be taken care, their capacity of taking the concepts from the teachers, and the ways of doing the learning. So I think that all can be taken care if we are using this technology. So has to analyze, to understand, to curate the custom content. I think that practices, that tests, big data, and artificial intelligence, they will be a great help to the teacher for delivering the content which they wanted to do. Now, if you see wearable devices, virtual labs, I think Dr. Saili also mentioned that. During this lockdown, if we use these gadgets. So I think the practicals were also not that problem, because we know that if the pharmacy course or the healthcare courses, or if there is a lab work, so they have to come to the campus to do those programs. But that was a problem with which everybody in the world has faced. So if we are using the wearable devices, we are using the virtual labs, then I think experience will be very different. And then online education is if you see that presently not capable of providing an in-person experience, but it is capable of creating one by integration and adapting the AR VR. So everybody is talking about that the AR VR technologies, while using wearable devices, that can play a very important role in our teaching learning processes. And the latest one is the cloud data storage. You know that we are anywhere, everywhere, wherever you are, and you want to talk about the data. And I will give you one example, that there was, we applied for NIRF, and then we applied for NAC. So there was some data they wanted to clarify that this data is given, and they gave us only 3 hours, and it was Saturday evening. So my person from IQAC, he was using that cloud data storage. He talked to me and he was having the whole data. I was also having the whole data. So immediately within no time, we were able to clear that doubts of the regulatory body. So I think if we do these cloud data storage devices, so we can do anytime, anywhere. And this EdTech organization will incorporate the cloud technology, right? So these are the things which if we use in teaching learning processes, that education will be very different. And I think we all have started doing, well said by the other speakers also, that is why we were the winners during lockdown. Thank you.
And I think pointing out the point that you have mentioned, that we have to work on the gamification aspect and the user experience, I think we are going in the right direction in that sense. Very rightly said, man. I'll just quickly move on to Dr. Abhay Kumar. Sir, my question from you is that how technology-driven institutes are adopting the non-linear teaching methods. Your 2 cents on that, sir.
Yeah, technology-driven institutes. Well, I must say that all the institutions are not technology-driven. So we cannot just decipher saying some are there or some are not, whether by choice or by situation. So it is said that necessity was the mother of invention. Probably I would say necessity is the mother of adoption. So we had to adopt it. So all the institutions, whether they are the corporate institutions, whether they are academic institutions, higher learning or school education, every individual institution has adopted to say technology. Now, when you say that adoption of technology in institutions, how did it go and how did it take a shape? As Dr. Madhu just said, cloud, of course, has a vast arena of storage and everything can be there. But what I would like to say right now is that say maybe when we talk about say artificial intelligence, as somebody said, it would help the institutions, the faculty members, say, to get away and not to spend time on certain menial tasks. Allow me to use the word menial, like setting of question papers, printing of question papers. That can be done through AI. They can go in for larger, say, focus this thing on research, focus them on how to improve their pedagogy. We were in big trouble, and let's accept that. So just after the COVID-19 pandemic, say, settled down and we somehow managed, I would like to say that technology, we have, especially at Pratap University, very recently, we have just had a placement drive with the industry, especially of our international students from Nigeria also. And they have appeared and they have been selected through these technological platforms. Was it possible earlier? We would not even have talked to them on a telephone at that point of time. So technology is now providing jobs. Say synchronization of academic institutions as well as with the industry. I think these two coming together along with the government directives and help, I think we can go anywhere, any places in the world. And that is how the future is all about.
Right.
So if you want to ask something more, I would just go ahead and say so.
No, I think when you and citing the examples that you do, it is really insightful. I'll just move to Dr. Sayali Kankar. Ma'am, my question from you is that how do you think the rise of EdTech platforms is impacting the traditional education model?
Yeah. I think it's a complete, if you look at it, there are many companies which are offering wonderful programs. They have great contents, right? So all these EdTech companies are doing extremely the universities which have a different appetite altogether in terms of the buying these products, right? But then yes, the leading universities like us, we have definitely collaborated with the leading organizations of Learn. We are now working with we are planning to work with Apple and TCS. So we are definitely investing into it. In fact, if you look at, and if you allow me to share the video of our simulation lab, you will understand that why this investment is very important for all the universities, though it is a medical education. And we are also investing in our engineering programs as well. But if you allow me, I would like to show that how these simulations are so beautiful. It's only 2 minutes. The time has come where all the education institutions and universities have changed their business models, and they have to invest in the, of course, the necessity, and then at the same time, the capacity of individual university will definitely play a role. But then it becomes very easy to give a student a very good learning experience. We can see that the enhancement of learning is happening. At the same time, satisfaction is very great. So I think I'm always positive for moving ahead with the technological setup at the campuses. But if you allow me, I would like to show that interesting video to you. It's for 2 minutes, if you allow. Again, I'm saying again and again.
No, we just have 5 minutes left for the panel. So I think I'll just have another question from Atif. And if you have time, we can definitely go into that. So thanks for bringing up the insights, ma'am. And Dr. Atish, a very specific question to you. So you being a part of a prominent B school, right? And you're building the leaders for tomorrow. So how do you think that technology is helping us to bring that leadership into the Indian education system? Dr. Atish?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
See, the way things are going to change, to my mind, okay, is this, that there will be more of a platform approach towards education. It will not be like the way conventionally education has been delivered. See, when we look at these edtech companies or the way the offerings are, they are all small certification programs. Okay, sorry. So they are all certification programs. Okay. Also, there are, then there are diploma programs or degree programs, the way it is curated. So what is going to happen is that institutions are going to accept the certifications for the requirement of completion of credits. Okay. And these micro certifications will be taken for the purpose of award of diploma or degree. Okay. Which means as a student or as a participant, an individual will be free to curate one's own curriculum. So multiple credits can be taken from multiple, offerings, so to say, and that will be accepted by the institutions. That is one part which is going to happen. Second thing that is going to happen is this, that the way we see with the new education policy, there is going to be multiple entry and exit, which means at various phases one can take credit and then accumulate those credits at various points and across multiple providers. So it can be an institution, it can be an edtech company, like that. What we will see, to my mind, is deinstitutionalization of institutions, which means that today a student is actually enrolled or registered to a particular program in a particular university or an institution. Going forward, a participant or a student will be accumulating credits across providers, whether it's an institution, whether it's an edtech provider, and institutions will start accepting those credits to allow a participant to curate their own curriculum. So education going forward from the participant's perspective or a student's perspective is going to be institution independent or provider independent, time independent, one can choose one's own pace. And number 3, also faculty or discipline independent.
Right.
And that will be the way in which probably, because of technology, education will unfold going forward.
Right.
That to me is one of the key deinstitutionalization of institutions.
Very rightly said, sir. Very rightly said. Thanks for bringing that insight to the table. So we have just 3 minutes left with us, and I'm getting a cue from the backend team. So, and I think we can go on with this discussion because the topic is so vast, but we have to wrap it up. So, just one liner from everyone, and what's the message that you want to give to the audience and the people that are watching this discussion? So, Vishal sir, just one liner from you to as a closing remark.
Sure. So first of all, no option but to embrace technology. And we have to make sure that we are agile enough to ensure that we are customer centric and make sure that our digital processes, right from student recruitment to the student graduating from the institution, it is well integrated to give a simplified, productive way in which the learning can be delivered. That's about it.
Thanks, sir. Madhu ma'am, your closing remarks, one liner from you.
From a teacher, you always say one liner is very difficult for us to, to give you the knowledge in one liner because we are used to our 40 minutes lecture. But Rajat, thank you very much for this time giving 1 minute. Very quick, this applies that now we have to use the technology in all verticals of education. Now, whether it is education, whether it is teaching learning processes, whether it is placement, whether it is well said by one of the speaker that whether it is convocation. So we did the convocation with all virtual technologies used. We did the orientation with all the virtual this thing. So now we are used to it, and technology will be. It is a technology-driven education system, which we all should be ready for it. And I think 80% or 90% of us are already ready. In our case, Rajat, we want to tell you that why we were very comfortable in Chitkara University in this lockdown, because I think 2015-16, we started with the technology. We just by default, we did it because we were very excited about it. But when we started, that came as a great help to our whole ecosystem during the lockdown. Thank you, Rajat. And we all should now bang upon the technology as a great help to the teachers, to the students, and to all the stakeholders, to the industry also. Thank you.
Dr. Abhay Kumar, your closing remarks, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Rajat. I'll take a cue from Madhu ma'am and speak 4 lines at least. Okay, so Rajat, actually the point is that technology is there to stay and it is always be changing the scenario. So we at educational institutions must learn how to adapt to technology first thing. And we must not have a misnomer that technology in any way is going to replace the human capital. It is going to assist and help us. That is a misnomer which we have not to let our faculty members live with. Second, like ma'am said, of course, e-convocation we have also done, and almost many other universities are doing it right now. Technology, as far as Pratap University is concerned, I must say very proudly that we finished our exams as per the last year's academic calendar because of technology by June, and published the results by end of June and initial starting weeks of July. So technology is going to help us in every possible way. We have to live with it. We have to grow with it. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Dr. Sally Kanka, ma'am, your closing remarks, please.
Yeah, thank you. I think the points are covered, but I would like to say that we are creating the future, the engineers, future technocrats for the future, the technology industry, and for which we need to be definitely updated, and we have to become the future of the future universities with the latest technology. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. Dr. Atish, sir, your closing remarks, please.
I think what we will witness, as I said, that education will move platform based. We will see Uberization of education and deinstitutionalization of institutions. Technology is only an enabler. And it's like when PowerPoint came, things changed. It's like this, it is always evolving. Ultimately, the learning process is about 3 things from a teacher's perspective. It is about enthusiasm, empathy, and expertise. The basics will remain same. As long as the teacher is enthusiastic, is empathetic, and has the expertise, technology does not matter.
Right, very said, sir. So thanks everyone to be a part of this discussion, and thank you all esteemed panelists to bring in all the insights from across the country. And I have my notepad full with all the pointers that I could note down. So thank you very much. Over to you, Chandan and Rahul.
Thank you so much.
That was a wonderful deliberation on technological advancements in the higher education ecosystem. Mr. Rajat, you did a wonderful job in driving this whole session. And I'd like to thank all the eminent speakers who took some time out of their busy schedule to be with us on this wonderful forum. Thank you so much, all of you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.